All right, welcome back to another weekly roundup here on the Krabby Dice. Just a little FYI before we start, there's actually not that many interesting projects ending in the following week, so that's great for your wallet, but there are plenty of games next week. Pretty much all the games making a ton of money are ending in the next 8 to 14 days, so I'm going to be covering a couple of those today just to catch up. If not, next week's video is going to be really long. All right, so let's not waste any more time. If you're new to the channel here, I tend to cover games that have at least 2,000 or close to 2,000 backers. I'm going to go through the campaign, the gameplay, the value, what I like, what I don't like, and if I helped you out at all, why not consider subscribing to my channel. So the first one we're going to look at today is a return of a classic called Fjord. All right, so this is not a straight reprint. It is sort of a reworking of a very old game from 2005, I believe. All right, and the game is doing really well. So this is brought to us by Grail Games, and you know what, 20 created. They've pretty much carved a niche in the hobby. They pretty much release nothing but either Reiner Knizia reprints or lighter style games. So think Whale Riders, Boomerang, that sort of stuff. You can look at their catalog. Just a lot of light games, and this one's no different. This is 8 plus, all right, on the lighter end of things. All right, so what is Fjord? Let's talk about the gameplay first because this is pretty easy. It's a mix between Carcassonne and an area control game. So it's a game where you're going to be playing two halves. The first half of the game, you're going to be playing Carcassonne, all right, placing tiles, and then you're going to be placing your long houses out. You only have 4, so think of them like farmers. You're not going to get them back, so you have to strategically place them on the board when you're placing the tiles. You don't want to place all 4 right away. And then when all the tiles are out, you're going to go to the second half of the game, which is sort of the area majority where you're expanding your Vikings out on the map, connected to either a longhouse or another Viking you already have, trying basically to create dead ends so you score all the points that are in that dead end space type of thing. Very easy. That's why it's 8 plus. I've never played the original, all right, but there are 4 major changes between this and the original that might have you interested in the game. First, quite obvious, the art and components. The game just looks absolutely gorgeous. Just look at this box cover. It looks like something that you'd find in National Geographic. The tiles look amazing. Do me a favor, go check on BGG what the old tiles look like. They're awful, especially the back of the tiles. They're really ugly. And now you have some upgraded bits, the longhouses and the special Viking meeples that we're going to see later. They're custom. They're not just regular meeples. So that's all good. All right, the second big change is that this is now a 2 to 4 player game. All right, before it used to be only a head-to-head game, and now it's 2 to 4. This one, it's a bit of a yellow flag, to be honest. The game will work, especially the second half of the game, if it's 1v1 because you're cutting each other off. The problem is when you get to 3 and 4 players, I know this is supposed to be a light game, but you probably end up in a kingmaker situation because when you're expanding your Vikings, if 2 players encroach on the same person's area, it's maybe a kingmaker type of thing. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to play it and find out, but that's my only yellow flag. The third change is they're introducing an advanced variant, which is called the rune stones. We're going to talk about that later, but there's some rune stones that can come out on the board where certain effects will score you extra points. For example, placing a rune stone on this mountain, because it's a special mountain, all the meeples around this mountain are going to score an extra point. Whatever. It's just a little advanced variant thing that you can throw in. Probably a needed addition because the game is pretty simple. All right, and the final huge change is instead of just being like Carcassonne where you're just drawing a random tile off the gigantic stack, you're going to have a display of 4 and you get to choose the tile that you want. That's a fantastic addition. I play with a similar variant when I play Carcassonne because just drawing randomly off the top is kind of garbage. Right, you're just beholden to whatever you draw and you can just lose because you keep drawing roads. All right, sort of type of thing. So that's pretty much the gameplay. I got nothing wrong like to warn you guys about besides the 3 to 4 player game, and that's what it is. All right, so let's keep going down. Let's not waste any more time. Let's talk about the value. The value is not bad. All right, so there's only 2 different pledge levels. One I'm not even going to talk about. This is just the retail pledge. Over here they're saying it's $28. Don't ever get this. Obviously, just wait till retail. You'll probably end up getting it for less. What are you going to get in that retail pledge? You're going to get your 67 hexagonal tiles, 80 meeples. As you can see, these are the custom Vikings, but they're all the same, just different colors. 16 of these longhouses. Your cardboard runes, you get about 15 of them or whatever, or a bit more, 18. And the rule book. I mean, I'm looking at the components here. If this is going to come to retail, it'll probably be less guaranteed than $45. Guaranteed, without question. Even $35 is probably a good starting point. So here they're saying $26, $28. I can't even see the numbers, so small. Plus shipping. You're coming close to that price. don't bother. Wait till retail, you get an online special price or whatever. All right, so that goes to that. Now, what are you gonna get for 59 scared me, but if you convert it to USD, it's 48, I believe. Again, I can't see the number, so small. So $48. So, you know, you're paying $20 to $25 more than retail. And what are you getting? Not great. You're getting 4 extra runes, all right, added to the 20 or so that you get from the base game. These are secret runes. You get double the amount of material for 2 colors because you can play an epic dual version, which is basically you're going to be playing with all the tiles, not just the 2-player tiles. But for that, you're going to need double the colors or meeples of longhouses and Vikings for those colors. So you're paying for 50% more material for a variant that you're probably never going to play, in my opinion. So that's not great value. And then what I really like here is instead of getting just a cardboard disc, rune stones, you're going to get plastic rune stones. So this is basically what I would be interested. I wish they would just sell this on the side, to be honest with you. This is the only thing that it looks interesting to me. So your 26 cardboard runes are going to look acrylic, which is great. So that's up for you to decide. In my opinion, I'm going to pass. Just get the cardboard version in retail, or maybe pick up the deluxe version on a math trade or something. But there you go. That's it. So the game does look interesting. Let me know if you're going to back it. Let's go to the next one. All right, up next we have Mage Noir, which is another in a very long line of wizard battling card games, just like Magic the Gathering. But you know, kidding aside, this one's not trying to be Magic the Gathering. It has some really unique mechanisms that we're going to talk about later on. But for this one, I think I want to tackle the value first, because I think this is where the game is stumbling. It's because the value is pretty horrendous. Whether you compare this to retail, whether you compare this to other projects that are on Kickstarter, I know a very important lesson to all the publishers out there. You need to compare your games, especially if it's the same theme, the same style of game, the same amount of components to other games out there, and you realize that you're basically pricing yourself out of the market because it's just really bad value. All right, for this one, you know, let's just compare it to not only retail but also other games that you can find on Kickstarter. So this one, content, there's basically three different pledge levels. We're going to go through them, but the base game here is $35. The jumping in points is really expensive just to get in. It's going to be $42 about, plus the shipping. So let's say you're spending over 50 bucks, and in total you're getting 300 cards. We have some stretch goals here, so let's just say 325 cards and 2 dice, and that's it. That's all you're getting in the box. All right, this box is going to have probably rows of cards for future expansions. Those expansions are probably not going to come, so you're going to pay for a box that's 90% empty, and you're only getting 300 cards for over 50 bucks. Even if you compare it to LCGs that Fantasy Flight comes out with, usually those games have the same amount of cards, and you get them for about 40 to 50 bucks. So already this is a really bad value. And then just randomly, let's compare it to something that I would have backed last year on Kickstarter if I wasn't backing so many games. But Sanctuary here, Mage Noir was $35. This one's $38. Just to show you how bad of a value a Mage Noir is. This one for $38, you get the Kickstarter edition of the game, which is going to come with all 6 decks, not just the 4 decks of Mage Noir, which you end up with about over 250 cards already with the 6 decks. So very similar in card count. You're going to get the double playmats. You're going to get these amazing crystals. You're going to get a bunch of these wooden tokens, over 50 of these tokens if you include the solo tokens. And you also get a bunch more cards that they've unlocked. So let's say over 250 cards. All right, and this is for $3 more. This is like night and day, especially if you compare it to Mage Noir. Even added on top of that is that there's more unique art in Sanctuary. So somebody can't even come back to me and say there's a unique art in Mage Noir that you're paying for, because half of the deck of these 300 cards are these stupid mana cards, which are all exactly the same. I mean, they look really nice. I like the way that they're black and they're bordered in their color, but it's not impressive. All right, so the base price is really bad. What is the price if you want to add on the extra decks? It's just ridiculous. All right, you just gotta scroll down here. So it's $35, so let's say $42 for just the 4 decks. If you want to add on the 2 other decks to get to all 6, so you're adding on an extra 100 cards, so you're coming close to around 400 cards. You're spending 80 plus shipping, let's say $90. That's insane. All right, especially for just cards. I mean, you can go get Sentinels of the Multiverse, which has probably the same amount of cards for like 25 bucks, just to give you a random example, in retail. All right, and then you have this, this is something that really irked me. I just hate this. They did that stupid thing that Fantasy Flights LCGs do, that if you want a full playset of all the cards, you have to get the whole thing twice. But then at that point, you're spending $150. Let's see, did anyone actually spend that much money on this game? Yes, 191 people are actually getting it at that level. And 2 backers are at $1,000. Okay, wow. Okay, so that's, you know, just showing you how bad of a value it is. But you know what? Let's talk about gameplay and see if the game can actually make up for the bad value. All right, for the gameplay, let's just highlight some of the major differences between this and other card dueling game. The first is going to be the resource system. So it's not like Magic the Gathering at all. I'm still kind of confused why Magic is such a popular game considering how broken that mana system is. But anyway, in this one, you basically have all the mana available in the infinite ether. So all the types of mana in the game. And on your turn, you're going to be taking 3 mana of any combination you want, or all the same combination, add it to 2 available ether piles and take one of those piles. All right, basically every single turn you're going to be gaining 3 mana because you have the 2 that you're placing plus the 1 from the other player who ended up putting 1 in that stack. So you're going to be getting 3 or more per turn. All right, so they've pretty much fixed the whole mana system. It's not a problem where you're going to get mana screwed. But there are some issues that I do see with this whole mana system. First, you're going to get mana flooded. I mean, all the examples of gameplays that I've seen in this game is by round 4 or 5, you have so much mana, you can pretty much cast anything you want. So that's not great. You just have a lot of mana cards, especially if you go to turn 10, let's just say. You're going to have minimum 30 plus mana in your whole tableau for things to cast, including things that you've already cast. Because already, I do have to mention is when you cast something, that mana that was underneath that card go back in the available ether in those same piles. So the piles just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger as the game goes on. All right, so that's that. Second problem I have with this mana system, there's literally no strategic depth at all. If you're playing a monocolored deck, you'd always take 3 of that exact color and place it in the piles. And then when you're drafting the piles, you obviously take all of the pile. You'll select the pile that has the most of your one color that you're playing with. Even if you're playing a monocolored deck with splashes of other colors, just play those cards or splashes of those other cards when those cards come up in your deck, because 80 to 90% of your deck will all use that same exact color or your monocolored main color. So they fixed the problem. It's still, I don't see any strategic depth. I don't know how they would fix this. Maybe force you not to take all the same colored cards so that you can have more strategy when you're making your deck. Maybe you'd want to create multiple colored decks. Also, you could have had maybe multiple piles instead of just 2, to maybe scatter the cards a bit more, so you have a bit of strategy which pile you want to get, because there might be some colors available in some piles that are not in others, type of thing. But either way, that's their resource system. All right, the second major change in this one is it's not a game where you're going to be playing a lot of creatures and the creatures are fighting. This one is more you're hurling spells at each other, which is unique. There's not many games that do that, so that's another change. And finally, the third major change is whenever you're casting a spell, the more powerful spells require components to cast. So just to give you an example here, this Zephyr card, you're going to see here it requires a blow component, so it says blow 1, and then also the mana to cast. All right, so you're going to be, let me find an example here. So you let's say this is a blow card. So on a previous turn, you can play a blow card, and then that'll be a component. So from then on, whenever you cast future spells, you have a blow component already as a requirement. So you just have to pay the blue mana, and then you can do whatever it says on the card, draw cards, deal damage, and so on. So that's a pretty cool system. You have some requirements. Now, I did see in the playthroughs one major downfall with this system is if you don't draw the components at the start of the game, you've pretty much lost, because drawing a bunch of these Zephyr and more advanced cards at the start will make you lose because you don't have the components to cast them. So you're just going to be drawing the next few rounds, and that just kind of sucks. All right, so overall, just a warning sign if you're interested in this game. The value sucks. The gameplay is actually not that interesting. Let me know in the comments below if you are interested in the game. All right, let's jump to the next one. All right, up next we have Lasting Tales of Fantasy Miniatures game. All right, this is from Blacklist Games. This one's doing really well. Still 2 weeks to go and 6,000 plus backers. This one's probably going to come close to 10,000 backers. So if you don't know what this campaign is, It's essentially two different products in one. First, they're sort of pushing their fantasy miniatures line. So 2 years ago they had a fantasy series 1. Last year was a horror line. You can get both of those in this campaign as well. And now there's fantasy series 2. All right. So that's one product. All right. I'm going to treat them like two different products. And the other product is basically a core D&D style rulebook slash game that you can get to use with these miniatures. I'm gonna get to this later, but this whole product is more geared to RPGers, both the miniatures and the game. All right, but I'm gonna tackle them each separately. First, let's talk about the miniatures. So, if you're an RPGer out there and you play regularly D&D or Pathfinder or fantasy style RPG games, this is the product for you. Hopefully Blacklist Games is pushing this product on all those popular RPG sites out there. I don't know any of them. I'm not an RPG guy, but there you go. So what are you going to get? You're going to get 184 minis. That's of today. You're getting like 2 or 3 extra minis every single day, but you're getting 184 right today for $75, and that's just a phenomenal deal. I'm assuming this one's going to end up at around 200 plus, so let's say 210 minis. That ends up being less than 30 cents a mini. I mean, what more can you ask for? You get so much variety. You pretty much get the male and female version of a lot of class slash race characters. You get a ton of added enemy minis. I mean, you can just keep going. You go through all the stretch goals. Some of the highlights here that look pretty cool are the Hydra, the Chimera. There's bears, wolves, cats, dogs, all these familiars, the Falcon. I mean, all kinds of weird stuff, alligators, cultists, just a lot of miniatures. So, if you're an RPG guy, you need the minis, or if you want to paint, you want to practice painting, you have enough models here to last you a lifetime. Right? You're gonna pay $75. You're gonna be painting till you're 105. All right, and there you go. So there's not much to say. It's a great deal. If you want to get it. What I'm gonna say though is you should get it in this campaign, because if you wait, just to give you an idea, the first fantasy series line was $65, and now you're gonna need to pay $125 to get it. All right, you can still get it. They'll probably still offer it in the next few campaigns, but I think this campaign is gonna do the exact same thing. It's $75 today. The next time you're gonna be able to see it, it's gonna be $125 as well. So, it's instead of paying $250, you could have paid less than $150 if you got both campaigns on Kickstarter. All right, so that's enough for the miniatures. That's really geared towards the RPG people. All right, let's talk about the game. All right, so for the game, like I mentioned before, you're basically paying for a core rulebook here, which has all your information on how to play, how to spec up your character, how to create your character, because this is more like a traditional RPG. You got to create your character, spec them up. It's got to have all the information on the enemies, how the enemies move, all their stats, the campaign information, the one-shot information, how to run the campaign and stuff like that. All right, and just being like your traditional RPG, you got to bring all the terrain yourself. You got to bring all the dice yourself, all the status markers, and all that stuff. So it's really a mishmash between, let's say, a true role-playing game, a traditional tabletop adventure game, because there are rules in here to facilitate the movement of the enemies, because this is DM-less game. I'll get to that later. And Warhammer 40K, because the whole, I guess, rule set reminds me a lot of Warhammer 40K, because you do need to use measuring devices to move around the board, and it's not a grid-based system. I believe D&D still uses a grid-based system, but somebody can let me know below if I'm wrong or if they changed it. All right, so basically that's what the game is. And some of the stuff that you can add on, because you're just paying for a book, you got the card pack and the enemy cards. So if you don't want to reference the book every 5 seconds when you're fighting or doing stuff, you can get the cards for it. Just FYI, I would just print them out myself and do photocopies and laminate them. I don't know why you'd pay $40, but anyway, that's a different thing. You got the accessories. So if you actually want the punch boards with the damage markers, conditions, fate tokens, you got to get it here, and then pay extra. There's some summary sheets and the party sheet here, and just keep going, and the official dice. So if you're an RPG guy, you have dice all over your house. I don't know why you'd pay extra money for dice, but it is there if you want it. And there you go. So basically that's what it is. Some of the things I really like about the system that are sort of touched on. First, it is a DM-less RPG game, so even soloable. So if you want to have that experience, you can get this to the table pretty easily. Second, I really like the fate system. So in a lot of these type of games, there's no dice mitigation, even though you're chucking a ton of dice. This one, there is a fate. You can use a fate to re-roll dice, but you have only a limited amount. So do you use it all early on, or do you keep some for the late game? Plus, if you do die, you need to use that fate to come back. And then it uses a system similar to D&D. I forget what the system is called here, but there's like a strong attack, weak attack, depending on your stats when you compare them to the opponent. So your strength and all that stuff. So your threshold numbers are going to change. So whether it's going to be easier or harder to hit the thing. I forget what it's called. It's a pretty interesting system. I think I'm going to enjoy it. Now, the one thing that I really didn't like about the whole gameplay system is that really at its core, it's just a lot of chucking dice, very similar to Warhammer 40k and War Machine and all that stuff. Very similar to traditional RPG games where you're just chucking dice. Roll to hit and then roll to damage is something that you only see in RPG style games. Really swingy dice. Then you gotta roll for defense, you gotta roll for events at the end of the round, you gotta roll for enemies coming back at the end of the round, you gotta roll for, it's getting to a point where when you have to investigate something, you roll for the event. So on a 1, something horrible is going to happen. You're going to fall into a pit and lose 6 damage. You roll a 6 and you encounter a treasure chest. And then after that, you got to roll for the treasure chest. You roll a 1, you get garbage. You roll a 6, you get like the best item in the game, ton of cash. It is very similar to something like Hero Quest, where you're just rolling dice after dice after dice, but that's what you sort of expect from this system, and it doesn't really have the nuance like a traditional board game has, in my opinion. Anyway, that's basically what I'm going to say about the game. You guys can let me know what you think about the game, and let me know what else you can use these minis for if I'm not thinking about outside the box of RPGers and painting. All right, let's go to the last one. All right, and lastly, let's talk about V-Commandos Deluxe from Triton. Well, now I'm going to make this as fast as possible because I'm beginning to lose my voice and I can feel it. So this campaign is for the miniatures pack for the previous V-Commandos game that was released, as well as a new gameplay expansion called Ghosts. All right, so it's 2 things. And you can pick up all the old stuff in this campaign as well. All right, so what is V-Commandos? If you don't know what it is, it's a dungeon crawl, World War II themed game. So you're going to be doing your dungeon crawling thing, moving around the map, doing your objectives. But it doesn't play like a traditional dungeon crawl in that you're trying to be very stealthy, not sound the alarm. Just because when that alarm goes off, the game's going to be twice as hard because twice as many enemies are joining the map every single round. All right, so that's not good. Another difference is your guys are not super soldiers. You can die really easily, so that's why you want to be stealthy as well. All right, so for this one, I think we're going to tackle the gameplay first, just because I really don't have anything of note to mention. I watched all the playthroughs and stuff, especially the Dice Tower one with Sam. He really loves this game, and you know what, he showed off his love to this game, and it looks like a really engaging system. If I were to nitpick a couple of things, first, a bunch of my nitpicks, they fixed with the Ghost expansion, because I would have said I wish they would have added progression, XP, and all that stuff. Well, they're adding that in with this new expansion, a better campaign system. They're adding it in with this expansion, more variety. Obviously, this expansion's adding that in. Another thing I might want to nitpick on, this game's difficulty rides a knife's edge, in that as soon as that alarm goes off, it is really terrible. So it could happen that at the start of the game, the alarm is going off, and that's not balanced at all. I wish they would have had a system where at the beginning of the game, it's really hard for the alarm to go off, but then it gets easier and easier as the game goes on and the longer you take. But right now, it's a bit of a random mixed bag when the alarm is going to go off. And that just rubs me the wrong way a little bit. But those are all minor nitpicks. The game really does look good. All right. So that's the gameplay. Let's talk about the value. This is where the game lost me. I was really interested in this campaign, but then with the value that they're presenting, it sort of pushed me away. I didn't really find it worth what they're presenting. All right, so let's go through the different pledge levels. I do got to give some props to the company, though. There's pretty much pledge levels for every single situation that you might be in, whether you have the old game, whether you don't have it, whether you want the minis or not the minis. So you can save some money by getting a bundle. All right, so if you already have V-Commandos and you want just the new stuff from this campaign, you have two choices. You have the Ghost expansion, and then, sorry, and then you have the all-in upgrade pack, which is all the three stuff. So the expansion and the two minis pack. Now, I would definitely suggest don't get just the Ghost expansion, because you're missing out on one very important thing, which is the upgrade packs, because there's some upgrades to the original game, so the core game and the two expansions that came in the past, and you're getting that free in this all-in deluxe upgrade. So unless you don't really want the miniatures, then you would get the Ghost and the deluxe upgrade components on the side. Another thing that really, a lot of people have mentioned this already. I hate when they say it's a free expansion. You're paying for this expansion. You're just getting a discount on the bundle. I don't know why they write free. It's kind of stupid. Anyway, rant aside. The only other thing I'd say about this all-in deluxe is the value is pretty poor, actually. $148 USD for what you get in this box is not great. And you get less content than a lot of full-fledged dungeon crawly type games that cost between $100 and $120. Even a CMON game at $100. You're not going to get that value here. It's really lacking content, especially if you look at the miniatures. I mean, they say 85 miniatures in total, so you're going to get the core box miniatures and all the expansion miniatures. But you know what, go take a look at what you're going to get in quality of the miniatures and variety of the miniatures, and it's just not there. It's like buying army men at the store. You're going to get the same sculpt 1,000 times. So just look at what you get in the core box mini here. You're going to get your heroes, which is fine, these are unique, but then you're only getting 3 sets of unique enemy miniatures, and they're pretty much the same sculpt over and over and over and over again. You're going to get like a dozen of one type, a dozen of another type, a dozen of another type, and then these 3 sledgehammer guys. 50 miniatures, yeah, but it's all the same thing. And then the other miniatures pack is just because they come in multiple expansions. They're miniatures of multiple expansions. You get a bit more variety, but still, you're gonna have 5 of one, 5 of another, 5, 5, 5, 5. So in total, for $150, you're getting 6 plus 4, being generous with these 3 hammer guys. You're getting 10 different models for enemies overall, and this is like 90% of the minis you're going to get in the box. That's not fantastic value in my opinion. I mean, you guys can completely disagree, but that doesn't work for me. Also, you don't get any large scale minis like you would in a lot of other dungeon crawly type of games. So you're paying for volume of plastic. So the bigger a mini is, you're paying for more. Just like Primal, one mini is really expensive just because that mini is so big and a lot of plastic goes in there. All right, so that's why for me the value is pretty poor, and it sort of pushed me away. Now, because I don't have the core game, all right, you can go look at the other pledge levels here. There's three other ones. There's the newcomers, the gameplay all in, or the deluxe all in. So newcomers is just the core game with the core miniatures and the ghost expansion, which in my opinion is the way to go. If I were to pick any of these 5 pledge levels, this is the one I would get, because the resistance and secret weapons expansions are vertical expansions. They don't add more content. It's just more stuff, but it's not critical stuff. More missions, but nothing game worthy, basically like an XP system or something that I would definitely suggest you get. So that's the newcomers, and it's $140. Still really expensive, especially you're gonna get less than 50 minis and just a core box and the ghost. So if again you look at all this components and you compare it to other games out there, it's just not the same value. And then the gameplay all in here is everything. So the 3 expansions and the core game without the minis, and it's $155. Or you can go crazy and get the $255 USD for everything. So the 3 expansions, the core game, and the 2 boxes. All right, so that's the value, $255. What is good though is that for any of these bundles, you are going to get the Kickstarter exclusives from the first campaign of 5-6 years ago. What you're going to get is basically extra campaigns, extra commandos, but these are not the miniature commandos. It's just extra commando cards that you can use like characters, and some extra tokens, all right, type of thing. And there you go. And then you got the stretch goals. They have daily stretch goals, so they can unlock some interesting daily stretch goal stuff. Like the barrels are pretty cool, some doors, the medals, the upgraded dice, and so on and so on. And these are some painted minis, and there you go. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm losing my voice. Let me know if you're interested in this game or if any of the games I've talked about today. And there you go. So we'll see you in the next one. Later.